Hello, good evening. So, in the previous class, we were discussing William Shakespeare's life and his works. And we have seen his involvement in the theater, how he came to England, and how he developed his career from being an actor to a writer, and his popularity even during his lifetime. All these things we have discussed already, and also we have discussed his early comedies and early tragedies. Okay, so that is what we completed so far. Now let's have a glance on the histories that Shakespeare has written, the history plays. And in the previous class, I have already given you an introduction or some informations on the different genres in which Shakespeare contributed a lot, and even Shakespeare helped in developing the framework of such genres. So English history is one among them, and when we consider the features of English history or something common about the English history by Shakespeare, we can see like we cannot categorize these history plays into tragedy or comedy. It's neither a tragedy nor a comedy, but it is actually a combination of both. You can see both the elements of tragedies and the elements of comedy. Like being a historical play, it should be a tragedy. Or being a historical play, it should be a comedy. You cannot categorize. You can see the combinations of both tragedies and comedies. And based on actually from where he got the informations to write these historical plays, because history and historical plays are of course based on some facts, some factual ideas during that time. It's all about the lives of some kings, some dynasties, and some historical facts that happened during that time. So the source for Shakespeare's histories are from or are like Edward Hall's Chronicles and Raphael Holinshed's the incomplete chronicles of England, Scotland, and Ireland. These are the two historical texts available during that time for Shakespeare, and he collected the informations necessary for the plays from these two books. One is Edward Hall's Chronicles, and the second one is the Incomplete Chronicles of England, Scotland, and Ireland by Raphael Holinshed. Then he actually the histories, we cannot say like, okay, at a particular point of Shakespeare's life he wrote history. It is not like that, but throughout his career he was writing histories. Historical plays were continuously being written by Shakespeare, and he addressed actually not only the history but also the historiography. Historiography is something, it is the study of the history or the study of the already written history. So the authenticity of history, in what context this history would have been written in this way or that way, things like that. So such kind of analysis are also, evident in the historical works of Shakespeare. So that is the significance. The later critics, when they analyzed the historical plays of William Shakespeare, they could find that he is not only addressing the history, but also the historiography. And then the general themes or the features of history, if we come to know the general, themes of history, you can see like the empire, statehood, nationality, all these are there in the historical plays of Shakespeare. And the competition to the crown, how different kings or different eligible people are competing with each other to get the crown and all. Then clash of ethical and political concern. When it comes to politics, how ethics is being kind of developed or maintained, or sometimes got dismantled. So all these kinds of things are the major themes of this kinds of works. Then role of women in politics, that is also one of the important areas which Shakespeare covered. Role of women in politics, how important the power or the position of women in the ruling or this reigning positions. So that is something addressed by Shakespeare. Then question of whether nobility is derived from birth or behavior. That is also one of the important themes discussed by Shakespeare, like nobility or the eligibility to have the crown. So is this something achieved by birth or by the behavior or the noble behavior that one person is showing? So that kind of themes are also discussed in some of his historical plays. And then monarch's duty to the people. Monarch is having so much of duties to the people, and how each and every monarch is doing that duties and how they are maintaining their responsibilities, like as against the medieval theory of divine right of kings. Here in this particular area, like monarchs have certain duties. Then neither monarch nor the parliament is an independent authority. Of course, they are dependent. They are dependent to each other. So that kind of ideas are also discussed. Then the dual body of the king. That is also something very important. That means the individual body as well as the political body. The conflict between the two may lead to the tragedy. That is what something earlier also I mentioned, that is the ethical and political concern. Being an individual, having some individual traits, one person may think in particular way, but at the same time, the political necessities or the political concerns uh, drive this person in another way. Sometimes they have to cheat their individuality, or sometimes they have to do something different which is not at all a part of their behavior or something like that. Okay, so that kind of conflicts, dual body nature, clash, all these things are the varying themes. So the conflict that person, as a person, the king or the ruler or the monarch is undergoing or confronting this kind of a conflict, that is also very evidently presented or portrayed in the works of Shakespeare, in the history plays of Shakespeare. And you can see the histories got published in the first folio itself in 1623. We have seen the first folio is published with Shakespearean plays. And also in the previous class, I told you, excluding Pericles, all the other plays were included in the first folio. So it's very clear that all the historical plays are included in the first folio. So in the first folio, plays were categorized into three groups. They are tragedies, comedies, and histories. This was the categorization made in the first folio, categorizing Shakespeare's plays. And British history plays is recognized as a genre in this particular folio. Okay, British history plays, because Roman, Greek, Scottish histories were excluded, and only British literary plays were included in this particular play. So that's why it is considered to be a genre. The English history plays were considered to be a one particular genre. Then histories were, categorized according to the time period when it took place. So it was categorized in that way in the first folio. And then you can see, like Shakespeare actually shaped this genre. You can say, like it is Shakespeare who gave an outline or a framework to history plays and how history plays are to be written. And after that, so many other writers following the style and structure of Shakespeare, they have also written so many historical plays. Coming to the history plays of Shakespeare, you can see there are 10 plays written by Shakespeare, which are categorized into minor tetralogy, major tetralogy, and two other plays. Tetralogy means like four plays which are having similar nature. Okay, similar nature or similar category. Four plays. That is what four number of plays. Okay, that is what a tetralogy is. So first one is minor tetralogy, second one is major tetralogy, and then there are two more other plays. So in minor tetralogy, you can see Henry VI, Henry VI first, Henry VI second part, and Henry VI third part. Okay, there are three parts for the play Henry VI. So three dramas together. Then Richard III. Okay, these are the four plays included in the minor tetralogy. Then in the major tetralogy, you can see Richard II, Henry IV, two parts. Okay, Richard II, Henry IV, two parts. So these are the three plays here in the major tetralogy. And then King John Henry VIII, that is eighth, okay, Henry VIII. And then actually what is missing in this major tetralogy, I was also confused why it is like this. There are only three plays. Richard II is there, Henry for two parts are there, and also Henry V. Okay, forgot to include that. Please do include that too. Henry V. Henry V is the fourth play, because in a tetralogy there should be four plays. So I too got confused for a while. So Henry V is the fourth play of the major tetralogy. So Richard III, Henry IV I, Henry IV II, Henry V. These are the four plays. Then you can see King John and Henry VIII. Henry VIII. There are only like three here. V3 eyes. And yeah, so that is about the history plays of Shakespeare. And let's see minor tetralogy in detail. That is Henry VI, three parts, and Richard III, that is the minor tetralogy. And here, see, early histories. These are the early histories of Shakespeare. And then it deals with the recent wars of roses between the Lancastrians and the Yorkists. Okay, that happened in the 15th century. Hope you remember when we were discussing the background and the historical details, we discussed the wars of roses. It was between like these two royal families during that time, the Lancastrians and the Yorks. And mostly these plays in the minor tetralogy deals with the recent wars of roses. Okay. And then it depicts the issue of emergent nationhood, because that time I told you this patriotism, all these things, nationalism, and the nationhood, everything was emerging during that time, and that issue of emergent nationhood was visible or presented in the works belong to the minor tetralogy, and then reflects England's new sense of national identity and power, because that was a time, of course, Elizabethan period, especially when we were discussing the background of Elizabethan period, I told you that was a time when this after Spanish Armada and after defeating so many such plots, England was actually getting the popularity of a very established or leading power, both in commerce as well as in terms of power. It was becoming a very powerful country. So that's why that identity, national identity, power, all these things all these ideas were reflecting in the works of that time. So especially the history plays, of course, deal with this kinds of historical facts. So definitely, undoubtedly, the history plays reflected this kind of national identity and power. Okay, and then this minor tetralogy is followed by King John and Henry VIII. I told you the two plays which stands alone, and this minor tetralogy is followed by King John. Then comes our major tetralogy, which includes four other plays like Richard III, Henry IV I, Henry IV II, and Henry V. This is actually based on the major tetralogy is actually based on the earlier Plantagenets. Plantagenets means it's relating to the English royal dynasty, starting from Henry II in 1154 and Richard III in 1485. So this just like Tudor dynasty, this is another royal dynasty. Okay, and it includes people starting from Henry II to Richard III. And, so almost like 1154 to 1485, covering almost 2 to 3 centuries. So the place of major tetralogy is covering the minor tetralogy was covering basically the Wars of Roses and the instances relating to that. Just like that, the major tetralogy is on the Plantagenets. Then you can see it's written at the same time as the romantic comedies. That is the difference. When Shakespeare was writing the histories, he was not exclusively writing the history. At the same time, he was writing the romantic comedies too. So I told you, like, he didn't spare a particular period of time for his history plays. Throughout his career, he was writing histories. And during the time of this major tetralogy, specifically, we can see that he was equally writing the romantic comedy. So both have complementary coming of age themes. Okay, if the romantic comedies is having the major theme in love and marriage, this one is like a young man growing up to a worthy king. So anyway, it is a coming of age type of plays that we can see both in major tetralogy and in romantic comedies. Then desire for a stable government, that is one of the themes of this what to say major tetralogy, mixing low life with history. Low life, like he introduced so many characters with much importance who were leading very low life. Though he is speaking about or he is portraying the historical facts concerning the kings and the rulers of that time, the mixing up of low life can also be seen in the works of in the historical works of Shakespeare, especially belonging to the major tetralogy. Then use of excellent blank verse. He used this blank verse in this category. And let us just see one of the history plays, that is Henry VIII. Henry VIII came after this. Minor tetralogy was followed by King John, and then Henry VIII came. This was performed in 1613, and this is a play written in collaboration with John Fletcher in 1613. John Fletcher is also one of the important dramatists, playwrights during that time. Okay, Fletcher. And this is a play we consider to be written in collaboration with John Fletcher. And this is his last history play, of course. Okay, after this, we couldn't find any of the history plays written by Shakespeare. And the original title could have been All is True. That is also an information, okay, that the historians or the critics collected, or the followers of Shakespeare collected. The original title or the first title that was given to this particular play was All is True, and later it got popularized with the name Henry VIII. This is the only history play not written during the reign of Queen Elizabeth. You can see, like, it is written and it is performed in 1613. Okay, by then Queen Elizabeth died. She died in 1603. And when you consider the years of other historical plays of William Shakespeare, you can see all of them have written during the reign of Queen Elizabeth. But this particular work, this is the one and only work, the history play, that is not written during the reign of Elizabeth. And this is also towards the end of Shakespeare's life too, because he dies in 1616. So this is just 3 years before that. So this is actually not only one of his last historical plays, but at the same time one of his last plays itself. Then most emphatically patriotic play. This is a very patriotic play. Okay, so that is the major informations regarding Henry VIII. And you can see last day I gave you an information like a 2007 biography of Shakespeare, which is titled Shakespeare by Bryson. So just like that, EMW Tilliard and his work, Shakespeare's Historical Plays, is a work which clearly explains the minute details and the nuances of the historical plays written by Shakespeare. Okay, EMW Tilliard's Shakespeare's History Plays, and this particular book is published in 1944. Okay, so it's kind of recent work, we can say. It is written in the 20th century only. He's a 20th century critic and follower of Shakespeare. So 1944 work, Shakespeare's History Plays, is written by EMW Tilliard. So if someone is interested to know more about the history plays of Shakespeare, they can definitely refer this particular work. And then coming to the mature comedies of Shakespeare, we have seen the early comedies and the basic features of early comedies and how he has executed these types of contents and ideas in the early comedies. We have seen Love's Labour's Lost, this comedy of errors and all those things. And then now we can see the mature comedies of Shakespeare. So the mature comedies are the full-fledged romantic comedies. Okay, the full-fledged romantic comedies, less classical influence. Like when we were analyzing the early comedies of Shakespeare, we have seen like no proper characterizations, and the content also like not that grave, or not that static or something like that. The consistency was lacking. So many things we were seeing, but coming to the mature comedies, you can see the maturity is attained in all senses, in the characterization, in the portrayal, in the framework, in the setting, and in the plot description. And everywhere you can see this kind of a maturity and mastership in his craftsmanship. And this is actually a full-fledged romantic comedy. Romantic comedy means like two people are falling in love, and there are so many obstacles in their love life, and they are somehow managing to overcome all these obstacles, and finally they are uniting. This is actually a basic structure of romantic comedy. And his mature comedies are mostly the full-fledged romantic comedies, and you can see less classical influence by this time. And of course, multiple plots is one of the important features of Shakespeare, that he used to give multiple plots. And coming to the mature comedies, you can see like more than 3-4 plots are like going in parallel form. So that is what the multiple plots thing. And then profound and complicated treatment of the theme of love. Okay, theme of love, battle of the sexes, focus on the psychological motives, and on the motives of marriage and all these things. Okay, that is very important in the mature comedies. And more developed characters, full of vitality, warmth, humanity. I told you in the earlier comedies, this is what something we missed in the Shakespeare's earlier comedies. That is, like the characterization was not that complete. But here, a more developed characterization can be seen. The characters are fully developed and full of vitality, warmth, and humanity, and powerful heroines. That time also, in earlier comedies, also his heroines were strong. We have seen like good portrayals of women were there. But in here, mature comedies, you can still see the powerful heroines. Then sophisticated wit, jovial, good humor coupled with lighter clowning, all these are the specialities of Shakespeare's mature comedies. Then continued to use disguise. I told you why Shakespeare used disguise in most of his plays. It was actually a requirement necessitated by the stage settings because women were not allowed to act in the plays. So it was men who disguised in the guise of like women, and they only acted, so it was difficult for them to change their costumes and things like that, as it is an open stage and something like that. So most of the writers, including Shakespeare during that time, included this kind of disguises in their play so that it is easier for the actors to present themselves on the screen without the attire of women. Okay, so that is one of the reasons. And this continued in his matured comedies also. And excellent prose in the style also, you can see some differences or some developments. So these are the major features in general of the mature comedies of Shakespeare. And let's see some very important mature comedies or some dramas come under this category. The one is A Midsummer Night's Dream, which was published in or performed in 1600. Okay, A Midsummer Night's Dream. Actually, for this particular work also, no known sources. We don't know exactly which is the source of this particular work. Of course, definitely there might have been some sources, but we don't know. And written to be performed at an aristocratic wedding. So this is a drama written by Shakespeare for a private performance, not for a public performance. So it was for an aristocratic wedding, and only two other plays by Shakespeare were written for private performances. In total, he has written three plays for private performances, and one is A Midsummer Night's Dream, and another one is Love's Labour's Lost. We have already discussed Love's Labour's Lost, and that is also a work written to be performed at a private wedding or some function, something like that. Then The Tempest, the final play, the romance that he has written, The Tempest, is also actually written for a private occasion. So these are the three plays. You can remember this: Midsummer Night's Dream, Tempest, and Love's Labour's Lost are the three plays written for private occasions. And this particular play, A Midsummer Night's Dream, has a dream world. It is full of like dreams, fairies. I don't know whether you are familiar with The Midsummer Night's Dream. But at the same time, this is a very interesting as well as very confusing kind of a play. If you read it, if you watch it, okay, you will understand it very clearly. But if you read it, sometimes you may get confused with what is happening. Who is this? What is this? It's very interconnected. And a dream world is created by Shakespeare. So many fantasies, so many supernatural elements are included. So it's something like that. And an intricate mask-like plotting is actually employed by Shakespeare in this particular play. Then the mood of celebration. Of course, this is meant for an aristocratic wedding. So definitely the mood of the play is so full of celebration, joy, jovial kind of a play. Then unrealistic characters, of course. I told you it's full of fantasy elements. Okay, fantasy elements are there. This play is filled with such fantasy elements. So definitely very unrealistic characters are also included in this particular play. Actually, there are four main plots in Midsummer Night's Dream. It's not one or two or three, but four plots are there, and that's why I told you that sometimes you may find it slightly confusing. Okay. And then there are some scenes which are like I'm not going to explain the story of A Midsummer Night's Dream, because it is like we have to take a long time to explain it. But if you are interested, please just go and have a glance of the summary of A Midsummer Night's Dream. If you are not familiar with that will be really interesting. And there is a play within a play in this particular play also. That is the story of, or the play of Pyramus and Thisbe. Pyramus and Thisbe are like two lovers, and what is their love story? This is what something they included in A Midsummer Night's Dream. And you can see in this play, A Midsummer Night's Dream, people are practicing or making practices of the acting of Pyramus and Thisbe as a play. So things like that. It goes in that way. Anyway, this is a happy ending play. It's a mature comedy of William Shakespeare. Then another important comedy, mature comedy, which came during that time is like Much Ado About Nothing, which is also performed in 1600. Okay, and the main plot is based on an old European tradition of stories in which the lover is deceived into believing that his beloved is unfaithful. This is actually an old European tradition. This kind of dramas or this kind of plots are very common, and this is also Much Ado About Nothing is also a play that is actually a source of this play. Okay, which follows this European tradition, this old European tradition of stories, in which the common theme is like the lover is manipulated by someone else that his beloved is an unfaithful one. And of course, this is a typical romantic comedy. Romantic comedy, I already told you, no, so many obstacles will come in between, and they will somehow managing to overcome this kind of issues. So here, what the problem will be like this manipulations done by other people on the lovers, so that they'll get confused to what is it, and they couldn't identify the exact issues. They cannot reconcile it in a proper way. So it goes like that, so much of mess, and finally it will end in a very positive note. Okay, so it's a typical romantic comedy, and this is a comedy of character than rather than the situations. Actually, that is something very important regarding the matured comedies also. But considering this particular play, you can see like this comedy, it's not based on the situations that the comedy is aroused, or this laughter or something, but it is because of the characterization, or the thoughts and the psychological movements of the character that the comedy arises. So that is something important. And two levels of plotting are there. This is something related to the content of the play. Don Pedro's plot makes Beatrice and Benedict fall in love, and Don John's plot breaks the Claudio Hero alliance. Actually, there are two stories. Two love stories are going parallelly in Much Ado About Nothing. One is between Beatrice and Benedict, and the next one is between Claudio and Hero. Actually, the Claudio and Hero plot is the main plot, and the other one is the subplot. But it is really interesting that the subplot, that is between Beatrice and Benedict, actually achieved more popularity than the main plot. That was really seemed to be very interesting for the audience or for the readers. There are no villainous interventions in that particular play, so it goes in a very smooth way in that plot, Beatrice Benedict plot. So it goes in a very smooth way. Maybe that is the reason why it got more popularity than the major plot of Much Ado About Nothing. Then comes Twelfth Night, or What You Will. Okay, Twelfth Night or What You Will. Actually, this What You Will is the subtitle of Twelfth Night. And why I included it in the title is because this is also one of the recurring questions that I have seen in many of the competitive examinations. Like, what is the subtitle of Twelfth Night? And the options will be like what you will, when you will, how you will, where you will, this kind of answers you can, choices you can expect. So that is one of the reasons. First of all, you have to identify the subtitle of Twelfth Night, the play, which is again done in 1600, and at the same time you should remember what exactly the subtitle of the play is. That is what you will. Okay, the chief source of this play is a romantic tale, that is Apollonius and Scylla. Apollonius and Scylla in military profession. It's by Branagh Rich. Okay, Branagh Rich. And this is actually the source of this play. Apollonius and Scylla is actually a romantic tale. It's tale, not a take. Okay, chief source is a romantic take. It is written a take here, but it is not a take, a tale. It's a romantic tale. Apollonius and Scylla in farewell to, and this OM, no, that is also in when we are typing, you know, sometimes this kind of issues will be there. And Scylla in farewell to military profession. Farewell to Military Profession is a collection of stories, and Apollonius and Scylla is one of the love stories, one of the love tales included in this particular collection, and that is the chief source for Twelfth Night by William Shakespeare. And actually, this work, Twelfth Night, is considered to be the best of the mature comedies, followed shortly by the first of the tragedies, that is Hamlet. After this, this group of romantic comedies or matured comedies, there comes Hamlet. That there starts the great tragedies like Hamlet, Othello, King Lear, and Macbeth. All these four plays came next. So before Hamlet, there were some plays like Much Ado About Nothing, Twelfth Night, Midsummer Night's Dream, all these things. And this Twelfth Night is considered to be the best among all these matured comedies. Okay, and this has a subtle complexity like dark comedy. There are some dark comedy elements also, like very serious kinds of things also included in Twelfth Night, but at last it ends in a very positive note, and it's a very comedy type of a play. And of course, it sustains the celebration of the triumphant love that characterizes other mature comedies. What is important about a mature comedy or a romantic comedy? Of course, it should sustain or maintain the celebration of triumphant love. Okay, the love that is successful, and we should celebrate that successful love. That is what ultimately the aim of a romantic comedy or a mature comedy written by Shakespeare. And this Twelfth Night is also actually maintaining that kind of an idea. And Viola is the major character, and you can see this disguise in this particular work also. Viola is disguised as Cesario, and she enters the service of Duke Orsino. Then how, you know, Orsino is in love with another lady, but that lady falls in love with Viola, who is now in the guise of Cesario. And finally, Viola's brother comes, Sebastian comes, and then this girl, Olivia, or something like that. Yeah, Olivia. Olivia is getting attracted to, or she is okay now, fine with Sebastian, because Sebastian is the twin brother of Viola, who is now in the guise of Cesario. And then Viola is developing a kind of affection towards Orsino. And Orsino is finally understanding that, okay, anyway, Olivia is not there, then he's also developing some kind of romantic interests on Viola. And it ends like that. Both the couple unite. Okay, so it goes like that. And like as a romantic comedy, you can see so many elements, like the stock features around like a Stanley dance separation of the twins, then disguises, because in the beginning Viola and Sebastian, they got separated, they are like alone now, and later only Sebastian enters into the scene. So this disguises, impediments of love. All these are kind of, it gives the romantic comedy elements to this particular play. And there are some anti-romantic elements also, but ultimately we categorize this particular work under the romantic comedy category. Like the Viola being in disguise is unable to express her love. That is something very, away from the structure or nature of the romantic comedy. In romantic comedy, they should express their love, but here Viola is not in a position to express her love to Orsino, because in front of Orsino, she is a Serio, she's a male one, so she cannot express. Then so many humiliations by another character, imprisonment and humiliations. Malvolio. Malvolio is a character, and Malvolio is encountering or confronting so many imprisonment and humiliations, and they are like vicious out of the proportion to the offense. So all these things give this kind of this dark comedy elements or this anti-romantic elements, but still you can see the elements of a romantic comedy, and it ends in a happy way, just like a romantic comedy ends. And thus you can say like Twelfth Night is also one of the examples for a romantic comedy. Then comes another play, that is Merchant of Venice. You may be familiar with this play, Merchant of Venice, which was also came in 1600. Okay, Merchant of Venice. Actually, this is a triumph of young lovers over their unromantic elders. But the lovers or the couples are very romantic, but at the same time, there are some elderly characters who are very unromantic and very serious, very selfish, very crooked, very cunning, and their triumph, this young lovers' triumph over their unromantic elders, is the basic theme of The Merchant of Venice. And triumph over the false and inhuman attitudes towards life. Shylock is a very popular character, villainous character, who got very notorious, we have to say, not famous, but through this particular play. And even now we have lots and lots of references to Shylock. We even use that in our daily conversations. Don't be a Shylock or something like that. Or yeah, so this is Merchant of Venice is such a popular play which highlights so many characters and their basic characteristic features, and how that got distracted by the young people or the young lovers of that play. A male friendship is also actually shown in this particular play, that is between Antonio and Bassanio. They are friends, and Antonio is helping Bassanio, risking his life actually. Okay, of course, he was sure that he can repay the amount, but he is getting the amount from Shylock just to help Bassanio, just to make sure that, okay, he achieves his love or something like that. So the male friendship between Antonio and Bassanio is like very well portrayed in this particular play. And later, one of the essays, Brother and Others, W.H. Auden, okay, it was W.H. Auden. Uh, he depicts Antonio's love for Bassanio as homosexual, because during this time we got this kind of homosexual things and Oedipal complex. So many ideas came, so many interpretations were, possibilities of interpretations were there. So according to which this kind of a reading was done by W.H. Auden, that Antonio is having a homosexual kind of a relationship between Bassanio, and that's why he is much obsessed with, he was even ready to risk his life for Bassanio. Okay, so it was like that. And also you can see there are readings, later readings on Merchant of Venice as a problem play. A problem play is something like which discusses the problems of the society, of the contemporary society. Okay, it should have some social relevances and all, and this is a play which deals with that kind of an idea. So it's not a fully fully a comedy because of some dark elements. Of course, there are some dark elements in Merchant of Venice, but at the same time, you cannot say it's a tragedy. Why? Because it has a happy ending. The lovers are uniting. So when you analyze it with the features of a romantic comedy, of course, there are so many hurdles in between. They are the not the usual troubles that the lovers confront in the usual romantic comedies. But at the same time, uh, when you analyze it with the features of the romantic comedy, okay, the lovers and they are expressing their love with each other, and in between so many obstacles, their separation, parting, and the girl in search of the boy, and they are saving each other, not saving each other, but she is saving him. And finally they are uniting, so that in that way it is like completing the characteristic features, the necessities of a romantic comedy, the requirements of a romantic comedy. So we can say like it is not a Pakka comedy because it has dark elements, and it is not at all a tragedy because it has a happy ending, and some anti Semitic elements are there in this play. And I hope you know the content of or the story of Merchant of Venice. I guess it is not necessary to explain. I guess if you don't, please do read at least the summary of Merchant of Venice, because that is such an interesting play. Okay, and there are so many. Actually, the title character, the Merchant of Venice, is Antonio. Okay, he is the title character. Antonio is the Merchant of Venice. And Shylock, when you discuss or when you study Merchant of Venice, you should make it clear that you got a very clear understanding of this person, this character, that is Shylock. Okay, because that is really important. Shylock is a stereotypical villain who is the embodiment of the medieval notions about Jews, because he's a Jew. And this conflict between Jews and Christians are also the rivalry between them, and how angry they are towards others, especially Jews. So in that way, of course, we can say like Shakespeare as an author, of course, his prejudices, his notions, everything is mingled in the works that he has written. Definitely it happens, because if you are an author, when you write something, definitely your personal interests, prejudices, and everything will reflect on the works that you are writing. So Jews detest Christians and hatch evil plots against them. They try to harm Christian people if a chance is available. Then they practice this lending money and getting this interest and all those things, which is actually morally and legally wrong. And then Shylock's punishment is actually severe. The punishment is like he threatened with a life sentence. Actually, what the thing is like, he has to give half of his wealth to Antonio and the other half to his daughter Jessica. Jessica has actually eloped with a Christian person. Lorenzo, I guess. I don't remember exactly. Please do check it. Lorenzo. So she has eloped with that person. So Shylock is totally, angry towards Jessica, and he is actually disowning Jessica to be his daughter. So in that way, the court is ordering that he has to give half of his wealth to Antonio, who is of course a Christian, and at the same time, the half of the wealth to Jessica, who has who has now with a Christian person. And then loss of all his earnings. It happens like that, and he is forced to renounce his religion. He has to convert to Christianity. So these are the punishments given to Shylock. So that was really, very serious punishments that Shylock got. Then this particular work is, or this characterization is influenced by Barabbas in the Jew of Malta. Okay, the Jew of Malta is another work by Christopher Marlowe, and in Jew of Malta there is a character called Barabbas, and this character Shylock is of course influenced by this particular character, Barabbas. Okay, then comes Yeah, sorry, I forgot to change the slide. See, you can see like it's not fully a comedy because of the dark elements, not a tragedy because of the happy ending and anti-Semitic elements, and the title character is Antonio, I told you, and the Shylock. Okay, all these details are included in this particular, slide. So if you need any references, you can just go through this particular slide. As You Like It is also another play which again came in 1600, and there is only one important source for As You Like It, that is Thomas Lord's prose romance, Rosalind. Okay, Rosalind is a prose romance by Thomas Lodge, and that is the source for As You Like It by William Shakespeare. And even the heroine character, her name is Rosalind itself. In Shakespearean work also, in As You Like It also, the character's name is Rosalind. It's an example as well as a parody of the pastoral romance. Pastoral romance, that is a favorite Renaissance genre. It assets the drawbacks of a country life. What are the problems of a country life, and a very detailed description of the natural things and all, and the setting itself will be like natural setting. And you can see, if you know the story of As You Like It, it is most of the part is fully set in the forest, and in a very natural setting. This has a framework of a stock romantic comedy, because this disguised princess, unjustly deposed ruler, a handsome couple in love, so things like that. So a pakka stock romantic comedy this is, and an absence of a dramatic plot. That's something very important about As You Like It, because the play is largely made up of conversations between different characters on romantic love and country living, and it is through conversations the plot is explained, rather than giving a clear plot information. It is full of through the conversations that the story is being explained. And one of the most musical of Shakespeare's play. It's a very musical kind of a play. Okay. And then after this, we can see the dark comedies. In between, I was mentioning like the elements of dark comedy and all those things. And what is this dark comedy? We can call the problem plays to be dark comedies. Okay. Because like it discusses one of the problems or one of the social issues, social evils of that time. So that's why it is called problem plays. Actually, this problem play is something applied in the 19th century. It's a 19th century term. During Shakespeare's time, there was no such a term called problem play. There was no such a structure or a genre like that. But actually, it is addressing this problem play is addressing the works of Henry Gibson, Strindberg, G.B. Shaw, Galsworthy, etc. Because these are the people who maintained or who created, who portrayed this kind of social issues, and they had this framework of a problem play. Okay. All's Well That Ends Well, Measure for Measure, Troilus and Cressida, all these are some works which we can include in the list of dark comedies. And when you consider the theme of the dark comedies, you can see like it's full of revenge, sexual jealousy, aging, midlife crisis, death, all these kinds of themes are there. In a romantic comedy, you cannot see such kind of themes. Okay. But here you can see like this revenge, sexual jealousy, aging, death, middle life or midlife crisis, things like that. And the very genre of comedy is problematized. We cannot say like, is it really a comedy? We will get confused. Okay, it's something like that. So that's why it is called dark comedy. Of course, it has the elements of comedy, but at the same time, there are some dark themes. And that's why it's called a dark comedy. It is problematizing even the genre. Then elements of tragic comedy is also there. That is somber, tragic tone, artificial happy endings, things like that. Is this a comedy? Yes, this is a comedy. But at the same time, the tone may be tragic and a somber tone will be there. It's like happy ending, but we feel like it's not a natural happy ending. It's something very artificial. So things like that. That is what called dark comedy. An unconventional turn of events. We'll think like, okay, conventionally this should be the turn, or this should be the proper way of this particular play to be ended or something like that, but you can see some unconventional turn of the events. Then complex ambiguous tone will be there, not completely satisfactory resolution for issues. In romantic comedies, you can see like there can be so many problems, but at the same time there will be like equally what to say, important or equally interesting solutions for this problem. But here there will be solutions because it is comedy ultimately, but the comedies may not be that much satisfactory. Then dark psychological elements, cynical or disillusioned attitude towards life, fondness for objectionable characters or incidents, then expose falsity of romance, and then reality as something very sordid. That means like something grotesque. Okay, we cannot actually cope up with. When you are enjoying a comedy, you should be like full of free laughter, things like that. But this is something, this is a comedy. It has the structure of a comedy, but at the same time, the tone and everything is like not that comic, not that pleasant. That is what, in a nutshell, dark comedy is. Then resembles the satirical comedies of Ben Jonson. Okay, his comedies are like the satirical comedies have the elements of this dark comedy, and the term has also been applied later to the Winter's Tale, Timon of Athens, The Merchant of Venice. Merchant of Venice, just now we have discussed. When it came for the first time, it was considered to be a romantic comedy because it has, of course, the elements of a romantic comedy, but at the same time, it has some dark elements also. It is not that very, pleasant kind of a thing in between. It raises the tension like anything from the part of the audience. So later, all these works also got categorized under this particular category, that is dark comedy. First, I told you All's Well That Ends Well, Measure for Measure, and Troilus and Cressida were categorized under this. But later, these particular plays are also having the elements of dark comedy. Okay, that is what something addressed. Now, let's just discuss All's Well That Ends Well. This is like the main sources, a tale from William Painter's The Palace of Pleasure, which is a translation from Boccaccio's Decameron. I told you Boccaccio's Decameron is having lots and lots of stories. And in The Palace of Pleasure by William Painter is actually a translation of this particular tale is a translation from Boccaccio's Decameron, and this customary material of romantic comedy, the triumph of love over the obstacles that you can see here in All's Well That Ends Well, but at the same time, it is presented in a very grotesque light. Okay, so that is why it is considered to be a dark comedy. Of course, it has the features of this romantic comedy. The lovers are, achieving their end at the end of the play, but at the same time, it is presented in a very grotesque light. So that is why All's Well That Ends Well is a dark comedy. It was published in 1604. Then again, Measure for Measure, I told you. Actually, this was a play which was first played at the court, not in a public place. And then it is taken from a striking range of sources. First of all, it's a real life incident. It says like it's a real life incident, we don't know exactly what the real life incident is, but usually people say like the sources from a real life incident. And then Cinthio's Italian collection of tales called a Hecatomythi. Hecatomythi, which is also the principal source for Othello. For Othello also, this Hecatomythi is the principal source, and for this work also, for Measure also, Cinthio's Italian collection, that is Hecatomythi, is a source. Then, yeah, this particular play, Whiteson's play, Promos and Cassandra. This is also a source for measure. So varying sources, or in all these sources, you can see the elements of the main plot of this play, measure for measure. This is a dark play that focuses on the evil with a cynical view of sex in social order. Then the title refers to Christ's sermon on the mount and all, that kind of a reference is there. So Claudio, Juliet, and all these people are the major characters of Measure for Measure. If you're interested, not even interested, like definitely you just make an analysis of, make an understanding of what the plot of this particular works. Then comes Troilus and Cressida in 1609. It's a bleak and bloody ending. This play is having a bleak and bloody ending, and a bitter picture of love and power, extravagantly corrupt and artificial world is actually presented in this particular work. Actually, there is nothing very important about these works, and that's why I have given this kind of general understanding things, general ideas for general understanding. Please do go through the summary of all these plays so that you will get a better understanding, and after that you just connect it with this kind of things, that the dark comedy, how it can be a dark comedy, and why still it is a comedy, why still it is having this dark elements and things like that. You can make an analysis, because we don't have time to make each and every analysis of these plays. So in that way you will easily remember the elements of these plays. Otherwise, if you don't have time or something like that, then definitely you have to keep in your mind which are the dark comedies: Measure for Measure, Troilus and Cressida, All's Well That Ends Well. All these are like categorized as the dark comedies of William Shakespeare. And again, this other plays also, some of the other plays like Merchant of Venice and all other plays also can be categorized or can be traced with the elements of this particular play. Okay, so this kind of things can be analyzed and memorized. So with that, I told you, after this there comes the great tragedies, that is Hamlet and all. And in the next class we'll be discussing the great tragedies of William Shakespeare. So with this we can wind up today's session. Thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed the different works of William Shakespeare, that the mature comedies, dark comedies, or the problem plays of William Shakespeare. Thank you so much.